All right, somebody tell me, what is your intention for today? I saw that the assignment went up and went back down. Has everyone read the assignment for this week? And maybe you can put it in the chat. If you don't want to speak out loud, that's fine as well. Go ahead and put it in the chat if you read the assignment. All right, great. I see at least one person's read it. Okay, great. Okay, even if you've already spoken, why don't you go ahead and jump in. What is the context for this week's assignment?
Hello?
Yes, Ida, go ahead.
Okay, so we're trying to predict the sales of across different stores of a pharmaceutical company. So it's more like a regression problem.
Sorry, can you say it one more time? You're trying to predict what?
The sales across different stores of some pharmaceutical company.
Okay, great. So these are the sales of retail stores, in-person stores. Is that right?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, great. And what's the purpose of the prediction? Or is the idea you're going to do, you're just going to do the analysis and figure out, can you give some advice to the management? Is there a clear question you're trying to answer, or is it, hey, we're just going to go and explore the data and see if we can come up with something interesting? Ida, if you want to take that as well, or someone else is welcome to take it.
Alongside the alongside the analysis, the main task is the prediction. We're supposed to predict for 3 weeks ahead, 3 or 6, something like that.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, good. So thank you everyone for getting me caught up in your context and helping me understand a little bit of what you're working on. I'm going to, so as you know, this whole session here today, what we're doing and what we'll be doing for the next few weeks in this hour slot is going to be very different from what you've been doing from some of your other sessions. And the different, mostly in the sense that the focus is different, right? Here, I really want to emphasize the aspects of the work you're going to do that are going to be not taught on an online tutorial, right? I want to emphasize the pieces of the work that you would be expected to do when you get hired that people will not explain to you. So to give a little bit of a story on this, I used to work at IBM. Can people give me a reaction or say in the chat if you've heard of the company IBM or if you've heard of Watson before? Okay, great, I got a thumbs up. Maybe only Anastasia? Okay, great. Now I got a few more. Thanks so much, everybody. So I used to work at IBM. Yep, I worked at the Watson labs. So the Watson machine where it was originally built, that was built in one of the research labs that I worked at. I got to meet the guy who was in charge of the entire project. He was supposed to spend 30 minutes with me and a few people, and he ended up spending about 3 hours. David Ferrucci, really brilliant guy, and he told us a lot of the stories behind how it was built. So when I was working at IBM, within, I think, my first month of working there, we had a senior executive, somebody who was responsible for teams of 50 or 60 people, and he worked in hiring, actually. He used to hire people into IBM, and he was giving us sort of the presentation like this and giving us tips and guidance. And what he said that I've never forgotten, I worked there for about 7 years, and this conversation I had with him was back in 2011 or 2011, I want to say. And he said to us, you have to learn the unspoken rules there's a number of rules with how the business runs, how people talk to each other, how they relate to each other, how you're supposed to share your work. There's a number of rules that no one will really tell you unless you ask them. And you're expected to know what those rules are. You're expected to sort of watch people and understand what is appropriate, what is good etiquette, what is good to do, what kind of questions are good to ask, when it's okay to ask questions, when it's not okay to ask questions, all those kinds of things. And I want to say that's going to be required of you in any job you work at. You might already know that. Actually, let me ask you that. Yeah, for how many people does this resonate? Give me a thumbs up in your reactions or say something in the chat. The idea of unspoken rules. And if it doesn't make sense to you, if you're not sure, also write that in the chat. Either way is good. Yeah, social contracts are a form of unspoken rules. Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. Social contracts, usually we use that term to refer to government rules and the relationship in society. Often we also use that term when we feel the government is not following those rules. The one thing I'll point out is that, like in a government, in a lot of the companies that we hope to work in, the power structure is a dictatorship, right? It is entirely decided by whoever is running the company. So in some ways, there's not so much of a contract of, hey, the boss is going to act this way. There's much more of a contract of you as an employee are expected to act this way. Yeah, go ahead. I think I see Jayeola's mic is off. Did you want to share something? No? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute you. Oh, great. You put yourself on mute. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about this thought of unspoken rules? Is this making sense to you? Have any questions? So here's an unspoken rule. The person who asks questions, when somebody in an authority position, like sort of right now, I'm sort of here leading this learning session, so I have some authority or I have some power in this room. Whoever asks questions to the person with power is usually seen as very intelligent, right? So you've probably already noticed this, right? The person who's willing to speak, as long as they don't say something that is very obvious or they ask a question that everyone already knows the answer to, as long as they ask the question, you know, with some humility, that just asking a question in a room like this makes you look very smart and makes you look confident. Of course, I'll just admit, by the way, this is all going to be based on whatever culture you're in. So that's definitely going to be true in the United States, and I expect it to be true in a lot of the companies you hope to work for, because a lot of them copy the United States in their culture. But I got a clap. Appreciate that clap. Thank you. In a lot of ways, my job is both to entertain and teach. So yes, I've got a clap. Thank you. All right, let's do this. I want all of you to think a little bit about unspoken rules. We're going to get started with that. Before we do that, I'm going to finish my introduction. I mentioned it already in the Slack. My name is Idris Merchant. I've been a data scientist, in many ways sort of self-taught. I went to college in the United States, got my degree in computer science. I went to work for IBM, like I said. I worked for IBM's consulting group. So basically, IBM would send a team of us to work at other companies and bring all the IBM technology and technical knowledge to that company. So some of my clients have been some of the biggest companies in the world. That includes Walmart, PepsiCo, American Airlines, let's see, Abbott Labs, Some of these names you may know, some you may not know, Starwood Hotels. And then these different companies would rely on me to teach them how to do data science or to build inside of their company a data science platform so they could get things done. Or they would just call us for a special project. I had one company call us and say, we need you to save our company $5 billion. We have an idea how we're going to do it. We're not sure if the idea is good. So come and provide us with analytics, data science, and help us determine, is it a good idea, and how would we do it? How will we make sure that we're actually saving the $5 billion, that's with a B, $5 billion, and it was going to take them 5 years to do that project. So they wanted to save $5 billion over 5 years. So that's one sort of example of how we did that. Or sorry, of what kind of projects we used to get as a data science group. So after that, I left IBM. I started my own consulting firm, and I provided data science services directly to companies just by myself, and like sometimes with 1 or 2 other people that I would meet or know as friends. And when I did that for companies, I focused entirely on what's called people analytics. People analytics is studying the HR employee side of the business. So what's included in the employee side of the business is hiring. So I learned a lot about how companies hire people. So what we will be doing during our sessions today and as we keep on going is I want to keep on focusing on what are the things you need to be thinking about to get hired. Every single role or job that people are going to hire you for, they have different expectations for what your personality is like, who you are, how you communicate, and how you think. They want to see you think based on the job they're hiring you for. And so if you're hiring somebody for sales, right, you did a retail sales analysis, or you're going to do one this week. One of the things that as a people analytics data scientist or people analyst, I will focus on is, does the sales representative matter? If I have the employee information in one store and employee information in the second store, and I see that for 1 year, person A worked here and then worked over here for the second year, and if I can see that the performance of the store was directly correlated to where person A was working, and I'm not really caring about person A, right? That's just an example, but if I can see across the entire organization that there are individuals that are highly correlated with high sales depending on which store they are in, I can find that to be really valuable information to then go and tell the executives. You should do training. You should hire good salespeople. That's the kind of thinking that we would have as a data scientist. And people who are hiring you have very similar thinking. They want to see, do you have the behavior, do you show the kind of intelligence or thinking or conversation that they expect from somebody who's going to do good data science? Now, what does good data science look like? Obviously, you're studying that, but you have to remember that a lot of the people you're going to work with are not data scientists. So how do they think about data science? So that's what we're going to be focusing on here, how you work with them, how you prepare yourself to be helpful to them, and how do you understand the whole purpose and value of data science in an organization. So I'm going to pause there. Can I get somebody to write in the chat, what is one thing, actually everyone write one thing you heard me say just now that made sense to you or that was interesting to you. I want to make sure that you're hearing me because I am talking pretty quickly, and also I have a very different accent than everyone else in this room. So please write in the chat. Anything you've heard that was interesting so far, that makes sense to you so far. Great, how data scientists work with others, yeah. By the way, if you're having trouble finding the chat, you just look at the bottom of the screen, you just drag your mouse down to the bottom of the Zoom window, and you should be able to click on chat, If you're on the phone, I think there should be a chat icon if you just tap on the screen. Great, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad a lot of you understand that you're going to be working with people who are not data scientists. Oh yeah, Anastasia, that's great. I'm glad. I think you can get there very quickly. One thing I want to point out, by the way, it's going to depend on what company you end up, if you work with other data scientists or not. Most businesses don't have a team. They have 1 or 2 people. So more likely than not, you will find a job where you are the data scientist, the one and only. But in many companies, they'll have a team. So we'll learn more as the job opportunities come in, and we can call Arun back to get more ideas from him. Great. Okay, thank you everyone for sharing that. So I'm going to go back now to this point that I was asking you. Why should they pay you? So what we will do now is I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. I have this little magic tool that is not possible in Google Hangouts that we get to do here. And each of you will be in a room with either 2 or 3 people that are also on this call. And I want you to answer the question, why should the company pay you? Because remember, if you are not clear on why the company needs you as a data scientist, then how can you convince the person hiring you that you would be a good candidate or a good future employee? So if you want to be able to convince them when you're getting interviewed, you need to understand why they should hire you. So I want you to answer that question, talk about it for about 5 minutes, and then I'll bring you back into this room. Give me a thumbs up or say in the chat if the instructions make sense to you. Okay, great. I see it okay. Got thumbs up. Wonderful. All right, everybody. I'll send you there, and you have about 5 minutes to discuss, and then I'll ask you to come back and share with me. Enjoy. Welcome back, everyone. We'll give people a minute to finish wrapping up their conversations. Victoria, welcome back. I saw you had asked for help, Victoria. I thought that maybe it'll be easier just to have everyone come back first.
Oh, all right.
But if you want to ask your question, I am curious. Feel free to ask it.
Oh, we didn't see the question that you posted to the room before like it just appeared and it disappeared. So we were trying to ask if we could see the question. Yes.
It didn't stay open long enough for you to read it. Is that right?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, that's good. Then I'm glad then we all came back. All right. Okay, so I think we got pretty much everyone who's going to be coming back. Thanks for coming back. So let's have someone share what was the answer in your group to my question. What is the reason the company should hire a data scientist or hire you as a data scientist? Feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to give an answer, and I can call on you. Or you can put your answer directly into the chat. My friends, let me tell you, if you're this shy during the interviews will not go well. I promise you that.
Hello?
Also, okay, there you go. Yes. Anastasia, go ahead.
Okay, so in our break room, we talked more about the skill to be offering the company as a data scientist. For example, providing more insights to the company, knowing which department to invest more money so that to get a general profit in the entire company. Yeah, it's more about the skills.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So yeah, I love that. Great. So you're bringing special skills, but really it's not about the skills, right? The skills are a means to an end. And as you said, Anastasia, which I love this, the end here is insights, but that's even not the real end, right? What you said just now was allocation, right? The word allocation I used to mean deciding where to allocate, where will I put the money? So I'm going to decide, or I'm going to allocate the funds that our business has in different departments. That's a great answer. Now, one of the things you have to remember that when you're getting hired and when they're putting up a job description is somebody's made an allocation for a data scientist. They've said, I have a budget and maybe I have $1 million budget a year and I'm going to spend, some $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 on a data scientist, right? And so they've decided to allocate some of their funds. So that's probably going to be a sizable amount of money that they're spending on your salary. So what other things do you think the business will get besides just allocations on where to put the money? In fact, let me ask it differently. What is the outcome of your insights? If Anastasia, this was great. I would love for someone else to answer. If you provide great insights, what is the outcome for the business? Or the nonprofit, by the way. Great, Victoria, please.
From providing insights, you'll be able to, if you provide insights and you can allocate those resources, the major aim is revenue for the company. That's the major aim.
Say that last part one more time. If you provide insights, then?
The revenue, like to increase revenue for the company.
Wonderful, yes. One potential outcome is we might increase revenue for the company. If you as a data scientist can increase the revenue of the business in a amount that's greater than what your salary is, do you think the company will keep you in the business? Do you think you get to keep your job? Yes, thumbs up if yes. Yeah, great. What happens if the opposite is true? What happens if you're working at a company for 6 months and you provide all this great data and all this analysis, but no one knows if any of your insights has made money for the business? What happens then? Do you think you get to keep your job? These are the hard questions I want you to really be thinking about in the sessions we're having, right? Ultimately, you're trying to work within an organization that already exists. Yeah, you might be put on probation. Yeah, great point. Just watching the chat, by the way. I saw somebody mention in the chat that companies, businesses need data intelligence to be competitive today. That's a mixed thought. You know, I should say, what I mean by that is I have a mixed reaction to that thought. I know a lot of companies that have spent a lot of money on data science and got no positive outcomes from it. And some of those companies are still trying. Some of those companies have given up and they fired all the data scientists. Let me ask you another question. If a manager does not have a data scientist, do they stop making decisions? Yeah, thank you. They don't, right? They keep on making decisions. So as a data scientist, you have a very complicated job. You have to help a manager make a different decision than they would have made otherwise. And they may or may not want to listen to you about it. So what you then have to become really good at is you have to become really, really good at helping a manager make better decisions and in a way that they really like. So let me ask you another question. If you are a data scientist at a company and you can show the manager that the decision they made last week was a bad decision, and you can show it in the data, and you prove it to them that they made a bad decision, is it possible that the manager might be angry with you and might not believe you, might even disagree with you and just think that you're not helpful? Is that possible? Yeah, he's going to be pissed a bit. There's definitely a possibility. That's right. Anastasia's right. It's going to be a large part about how you present the data. Data doesn't lie is a dangerous thought. I recommend you look at there's a book that's titled How to Lie with Data. So you want to be careful with that because often you will be called out on that. So, and what in particular managers can call you out on is they'll say that, so first of all, do you gather the data or do you get the data from the system? You get the data from the system. You're not necessarily going and interviewing people, right? So one of the things that will happen is your relationships will make a big difference in the business. Okay, but now I'm starting to talk about a lot of topics, a lot of important topics. But I want to bring us back to sort of the core point here about decision making. So I really want to engage everyone here on how do we make decisions with data. Some of the things I want you to think about, right, is, by the way, you might not work in a for-profit organization. You might work in a nonprofit organization. So in a nonprofit organization, nonprofits, NGOs, they have different goals besides profit. So they might be thinking in an NGO, in a social organization, how do I, get more malaria nets out? How do I decrease the cycle of poverty? How do I provide enough medical interventions? And how do I prove that the medical interventions are working? So they, how do I communicate to my donors to keep giving me donations? That one's a little bit money oriented. So if you work in a nonprofit sector, a lot of this is a lot more complicated. If you work in a business, your goal is very simple. How can I prove that we're increasing profit? So like Stephanie said, you can increase revenue. The other option is you can decrease cost. In the company, we saved $5 billion. Actually, I can't say we saved it. We really just helped them with the data. But in a business where we helped them with the data to save $5 billion, they were saving $5 billion from their costs. For the owner of the business and for the business as a whole, the perspective is the same. If I save money, I make money, right? So increase revenue, decrease cost, both of them are equally good. At the end of the day, we just want to be making money, right? So as a data scientist, all your work is going to be supporting that. If you're in a business, if you're in a nonprofit, then you're supporting the cause or the purpose of the nonprofit, whatever social problems it's trying to address in the world. As we talked about this idea of making sure that you're being helpful. So one of the things that can be tricky with data science is, like I said, it's very easy to look backwards and retroactively say, that was a bad decision. But that doesn't necessarily make the future decisions easier. So to Anastasia's point about how you present the data, it becomes very important. If you can present the data in a way that says, look, here's what happened in the past. I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm not saying any manager did a bad thing. I'm just saying, here's the trends that happened in the past. When we did interactive advertising, here's what we saw. Now, by the way, the data wasn't complete when we did the first analysis. So I recommend we do another set of interactive advertisements. And this time, I'm going to put in a lot more analysis. And I think as a company, we should invest in sending it to a lot more customers so that we get a larger sample size for the data and for our analysis, rather. So if I can get that agreement with the manager, and if I say it in that way, hey, this thing you did looks cool. I want us to see how much it's worth. Should we keep investing in it? If you can communicate that, then your leadership might get more interested, right? Now, the problem is that if you take too long, if you take 5 months to do your analysis, the company might be bored with interactive analysis. They forgot about it. They put it on the shelf. They stopped thinking about it. So doing it quickly like you're doing it right now for these weekly exercises is key. So it's very good that you're doing these exercises so quickly, making sure your analysis is actionable. I can take action as a leader. You didn't tell me I did something stupid last week so that I can feel bad. You told me that based on what I did last week, you recommend I do something different or I do something more next week, right? So I want it to be actionable. I want to be able to do something with your data. And I want it to be reliable. If you give me a data report and I realize that the analysis doesn't make sense, because as a leader, I know my business. I've been running this business for years. And if I look at the analysis, I can see if something doesn't make sense, or I might look at it and I say, that's really interesting. You're telling me the interactive sales is better. So I might ask you, can you give me more details? Which demographics did it work really well for? And when you start to look at the individual data and you give me specific numbers, if any of those numbers are wrong, I won't trust you anymore. So I need you to be reliable with your data. I need you to be accurate. I need you to make sure that the analysis was done accurately, because 1 or 2 analyses that are done incorrectly, I can't trust you anymore. So I want you to keep these 3 things in mind when you think about what the role of a data scientist is. It's to provide reliable, action-oriented insights that are available now, right? So the 3 words I want you to think about is, I like to call it can. It should be correct, actionable, and I want it now, right? So those are the 3 things. Can I get a thumbs up if that makes sense to you? Yeah, that's right, Kevin. That's a great way to put it. And you got to remember, most of these folks are not data scientists, so they don't understand all the work that goes into an analysis. So for them, hey, you're a smart person. If you're actually smart, give me my analysis immediately, right? So a lot of these things can be hard. Thanks for those thumbs up. I appreciate that energy and that interaction with me. All right, we're short on time, so I'm going to try to just speed along here. I'm going to go for 15 minutes extra. If you need to leave in the next 5 minutes, feel free to do that. But I'm going to spend another extra 15 minutes because I think there's a few important things, and I want to give you some homework as well. Let's do this. Oh yeah, okay. One thing I'll say, if you can make sure you're doing your analysis correctly, you're making it actionable, and you're getting it to them very quickly, the best case scenario is that they will always ask you before they make big decisions. They'll come to trust you so much that they'll say, you know what, Kevin or Ida or Anastasia knows my business so well and knows we can get information from this data, can get insights from this data that I can't get. I have to talk to them before I make any decision. In fact, there will be times where they don't give you enough time to look at the data. They'll just come and say, I want to know your opinion. I don't want an analysis right now. I don't have time for an analysis. I'm about to make a phone call. I'm about to make a deal with somebody. I want your opinion. And that is actually the best case scenario, as frightening as it might sound. The worst case scenario, if you can make sure that your analysis is correct, actionable, and you give it to them right away. The worst case scenario, they don't know if you're making the business money, but they know they can trust you to get the job done when you ask for it, when they ask you to give them an analysis. So the worst case scenario, if you can make sure that your analysis is correct, actionable, and you give it to them right away, is that they will trust you to at least do the analysis. We'll talk more about how to go from the worst case to the best case. But if you do not make sure your analysis is correct, they won't trust you and they'll want you to leave. If you don't make it actionable, they'll despise you, right? They'll hate you because you just make them feel bad. They'll want you to leave. If you don't give them right away, the analysis right away, they can't rely on you. They'll want you to leave, right? They'll want to replace you. So these are the 3 things you want to think about. By the way, if you remember this stuff when you're in your interviews and you're talking to somebody who's not technical, they don't realize this. I understand this because I've worked with so many non-technical people. They don't realize that this is what they want, you know? This is like this is sort of in their subconscious. They don't actually know how to tell you that this is what they want. So when you're actually working with them, if you know this and you can talk about this in your interviews, they'll appreciate that. You understand what it's like to be them. We'll get more into that as we keep going each week. So, okay. With that, I want to give you some homework. One of the best ways you can understand how decision-making works with data science is to use it in your own life. So I want you, for your homework, let's do this. I'm going to make a Google Doc as we're talking right now. I'm going to create the assignment as we talk. One of the challenges here is that I am not paid for these sessions. I am volunteering. And right now I have about 12 different projects I'm working on. I know from the science that 7 is the reliable number of projects to have because 7 is what your short-term memory can hold. So you can think about all 7 projects at once. 12 is too much. I'm doing 12. Not all paid, by the way. But because of that, I do not get to prepare as much as I usually would for these kinds of sessions. So I'm going to just do this sort of with you as I talk. And actually, can I get Can somebody in the chat, is there anyone who'd be willing to take notes for me? That'll make it easier for me to share with you some of the assignment. Someone just write that in the chat if you'd be willing to write down notes. I'm going to give you a Google Doc right now, and I'd like you to take notes for me. No one wants to volunteer? If you do not volunteer, then we'll have to go very slowly as I'm, okay, thanks. Thank you both, I appreciate that. So why don't you both try to work together to take notes? I just put the link in the chat. And I want you to find one decision that you have to make this week and use data science to make the decision. Everyone else, go ahead and join the chat as well. Sorry, join the Google document as well. It's the Google document listed in the chat. So your assignment, you'll write one page on a separate Google document, not on this one. Write one page explaining what you do for this week. I want you to pick any decision. So if you need to do some finances for your house, for your family, if you're deciding on something you want to buy, if you're deciding what you're going to eat, any decision you're making in the next 7 days, any decision you're making in the next 7 days, do some data science. Now, I'm not asking you to do a logarithmic regression. I'm not asking you to have an analysis using reliable data sets. I'm not asking you to do a massive data collection. What I'm asking you to do is use the principles of data science to make the decision. And there's many techniques I can talk about, and we'll actually talk about one in detail tomorrow, or next week. This is how you will answer the question when your manager comes to you and says, I've got 5 minutes, I've got to go into a meeting. As a data science, I want your opinion. As data scientist, I want your opinion. What decision should I make? Next week, I'll teach you the technique I would use in that kind of situation. But before that, I want you to try yourself. Take any decision and spend, that you're making this week, and spend time thinking about, what do I know as a data scientist that's going to make this decision different than I would make it otherwise? I want you to answer 4 questions. The first question is, what was the decision? So make it very clear, what decision were you making? What was the decision, number 1? Number 2, how would you have made the decision? How would you have made the decision if you did not know data science? So before you took this course, before you learned anything about data science, how would you have made that decision if you knew nothing about data science? That's number 2. And then number 3, did using data science change your decision? And when I say data science here, I'm really saying data science thinking, right? The thinking that goes behind data science. Because I don't really expect you to do a robust analysis. So what I'm asking you for number 3 is, did using data science change your decision? Data science thinking change your decision? Let me just make sure these are getting captured correctly. Yeah, and so because I'm numbering them as I speak, or note takers, I'm just going to go ahead and number it in the document as well. Right, yeah. Yep, great. And then for number 4, if yes, if your decision changed, if yes, what changed? If no, what can you do to pick a better approach to your data science thinking for next time?
Can you come again on that last part?
Yeah. So if your decision did not change with the data science thinking, what can you do differently with your data science thinking to change the decision next time? By the way, one way your decision can change is that you have more confidence. You might do the exact same action, but just having more confidence and more awareness as you take the action can improve the outcomes. So that's a fine answer. Obviously, it's much more meaningful if you do change your decision altogether, but it's also as very meaningful if you take the same decision and the decision changes the way you act. You have more confidence, you have more clarity, more awareness, you're more insightful about the action. That can make a difference. Let me give you an example on that. Okay. Recently I've been running a small business for a friend of mine, and in this business we ship food. In fact, I have one. We ship these little guys. They're called meal squares. They have all of your nutrients that you need for your day in the small little package. So we were shipping them late. We were getting behind on orders, and it would take maybe 1 week or 2 weeks for a customer to get the order, and we mail them the order. They don't come to the store. We mail it to them. And my friend who I was running the business with was saying that he doesn't think it matters if we ship them late. And I said, I know for sure it matters. It absolutely matters. But we had no data. So I ran a survey. Every time a customer canceled their subscription with us, they stopped buying from us. I sent them a survey. What was bad about the business? And I was able to show in the data that at least 60% of customers who stopped buying from us complained about not knowing when the shipment would come. And so the truth is, I was running the business at the time, so I could have made the decision to change things without my friend's involvement. But because I had the data, he immediately changed his own opinion, and he stopped working against me and stopped fighting with me about this, and he started to help me with it. So the decision was ultimately the same, but the way it played out, the actions we were able to take together were very different because I had better data. All right, so can I get a thumbs up or something in the comments if you understand what your homework assignment is? All right, I've got just the one. Let me see. Okay, good. Got a couple more. I know some of you are in the Google Doc, so maybe it's some effort to switch back. Okay, great. Everyone's clear. Very good. And then let me get a thumbs up if you can understand why this exercise is meaningful for you, why it will help you. All right, great. Okay, so now we are all data scientists. Even when I teach non-data scientists, I always do this. Before you leave, I would like everyone to fill out a survey. And then I will tell you, after you finish filling out the survey, I will tell you the fun thing we'll do next time very briefly. So I'll just give you a little teaser for that. But first, go ahead and fill out that survey. So as data scientists, I'm here to collect your data. And just take 5 minutes to fill out the survey. Should not take you more than 5 minutes. Thank you, Olu. Great, I see 2 responses in. I want to encourage everyone to try to submit wherever you are. We'll go ahead and wrap up. I see 4 responses. I'm gonna wait until we get something close to at least 10 responses. Once we get 10 responses, I'll go ahead and start wrapping this up. All right, great. I've got 10 responses now. So yeah, please go ahead and submit your survey when you finish. But I want to start asking you now, I want to start sharing really quickly what we'll do next week. So next week, we will do what's called Fermi modeling. Feel free to take a look if you'd like. But Fermi modeling is named, I believe, after the research lab. Filled with really brilliant scientists who all understood data science. They didn't call it data science, they called it statistics and analytics. But they had a lot of data and they were doing some very complex analyses. But they realized that data science thinking can be applied to every single decision they were making on a daily basis. They created something that we will practice next week. The next 2, so this week and next week is about you practicing data science in your daily lives. The following week will be about you figuring out how to communicate with non-technical data scientists. We'll do that for 2 weeks as well. So 2 weeks of practicing decision-making with data science. Brian, I'm gonna tell you again next time. I'm not gonna name it again this time. But thank you for asking. I appreciate you asking. But I want to save it, so I'm not going to give you too much incentive to look it up. This week and next week, we're going to be talking about the modeling of using data science thinking in your own lives. The following 2 weeks, we're going to focus on how to communicate with non-technical audiences, how to make sure that they appreciate what you're sharing and use it well. And then the last 4 weeks, we'll just be focused on interviewing and getting you a job. So what can you do in your research and in your applications as a data scientist to look like somebody who can really help these companies or organizations? I hope some of you work for nonprofits because I've worked in a lot of businesses and they have all kinds of problems. So I'm a big believer in doing social work, which is part of why I'm connecting with all of you. I feel like helping people learn this kind of stuff for free is valuable. So anyways, last 4 weeks will be focused on helping you get jobs. And with that, I want to end our conversation by asking people to share one thing you learned. You may have already written it in the survey. What's one thing you learned or you enjoyed in today's session? So if you can write that in the chat, or you can come off of mute and you can just say it out loud. You can raise your hand if you'd like me to call on you. I would love to hear from you guys. What's one thing you learned today that you liked or one thing you enjoyed about today's session? And it's really nice to hear your voices. So if you do want to come off of mute, I would love that.
I could go. This is Omoyo. So I really enjoyed the breakout session, the breakout into groups, and that's really something reserved for physical meetings. So seeing that implemented on a virtual meeting, that was very interactive and very enjoyable. Yeah.
Thanks, Omoyo. Sorry, one minute. Yes, thanks, Ida. I am very lively. This is true. This is actually how I got a lot of my data science work done. It helps. great. I really appreciate that the analysis must be trustworthy. That is a great takeaway to have. Anyone else? Let me get like one or two more. Great. Yes, lying with statistics book is a good thing to have. I should try to find the actual title. I think it's How to Lie About Anything with Data. Or maybe Lie with Data. I don't know where it is. How to Lie with Statistics. That's what it is. Yes, that's right. Daryl Huff. That's right. Great. Okay, wonderful. All right, thanks everyone for coming. I will see you next week. And yeah, good luck with your assignments. And yeah, I will very much look forward to seeing what you write. Oh, please post your assignments in Slack so all of us can see them. If you don't want to share anything private, try to make your writing not include the private stuff. But please do share your one-page assignment in the Slack with everyone. All right, thanks so much, everybody. I'll see you next time. And feel free to unmute yourself and say goodbye or say bye in the chat as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks.
Happy to interact with you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Timothy, did you were you hoping to ask a question? Oh, I'm gonna stop the recording.